Yay. Hi, Yvonne.
Hi, Sol. How are you today?
Oh, very much alive, very much
Oh,
activated.
good,
Yeah,
good.
in a beautiful way.
We love that. We love that. There's so
So
much
great.
going on at the moment. The energies are pretty. Um, what would I say? In turmoil.
Mm,
Hmm. Yes. So here we are, another week, and a subject that is very close to my heart and soul and yours, and that is about doing the work and going
mm,
within.
mm-hmm,
I think the reason that that's come up at the moment is because um, we have had these couple of years to start looking somewhere other than out there, because out there was not somewhere where you wanted to be.
mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have started to look within. However, as soon as things start to look even slightly normal, it's very easy to then put that on the hook as, something that I'll do when I have time.
Yeah,
And I'm sure you will agree with me that when you go on this journey, it has to become a priority. And if it isn't,
mm,
then life is not going to be easy. So I just thought we'd explore that a little bit today.
so great. Yeah, the lofty fantasies of the new earth are wondrous and wonderful and inspiring and yum and yay feelings. And we can we can be in that frequency within ourselves and to the best of our ability. But for that then to start really manifesting out into the other outer world, and there's more to shift than just us feeling nice, or at least imagining that we get to for the longest time in how I related to our new earth that is ours and our generation and our time to activate and to bring into experiential reality. I was conceptually relating around the beauty of it, and unconsciously, I was having a fantasy that, well, if we just do it with enough of us having this fantasy, it will happen, or some hero will come around and will create a big movement towards a sanctuary like this and create communities, and who knows, we'll maybe transform countries, and the work is really within. And that is where a foundational shift is possible, is available. There's a return and a homecoming for each and every one of us. That is one of self sovereignty, that is one of clarity, that is one of distinction and the sense felt activation of our purpose and our mission Earth that we came here for. And in that, bringing through and giving to expression our unique gifts and talents that aren't necessarily based on baking pastries for, in a bakery. They are, more often than not, if we came on assignment here to earth, more often than not, they are really about the intergenerational transformation of our human ecology. And that begins here. But when we unlock and when we uncover what blindfolds and what veils and what distorted lenses and what blurry views and unexamined assumptions were all there unexamined, sitting away, based and coming from our cult programming, when we start seeing through the lens of syntropy and we attune to that frequency of nature and our new earth, what happens is that we get access to a domain within ourselves that all of a sudden gives us access to so much more outside of ourselves. And this is something that you don't get to by having lofty fantasies on how beautiful the new earth looks. This is about dedicated, willful commitments to doing the inner work, to transforming those lower frequencies, those frequencies of lack and scarcity, the frequencies of feeling feeling, the frequencies of making it about other, whether it's the governor, whoever it is, pick a person. Those stories we have the opportunity to apprehend, and we have the opportunity to make use of them, to invert them, to transform them, to recalibrate them, and to bring that real truth out, which is that most of those stories, once they're dealt with and seen for what they were and the function that they played, they're no longer relevant. They actually are almost noise, but it's noise in the background that we don't even really have any attraction to paying attention to. And what therefore becomes available is this whole avenue that opens up for us, that we actually not just get to fantasize about the new earth, but we get to consciously dream it into being by speaking it, by talking about it, and by activating not just the dialogue, but the hubs and the sanctuaries. And this conversation is about the inner sanctuary. So it makes sense that we really explore that one.
True, very true. Wonderful, wonderful words as always. I'm just sitting here listening to you, thinking about what that means. We talk a lot about inner work and doing the work and going within, and they become words. They become and they stay words until and unless you actually activate them. So I thought I'd share a little bit about my early journey, because people, think that maybe I've been this way all my life. But like everyone else, my life had to crash before I would listen to that inner voice. And what I've learned out of that is that the biggest hurdle is not what's outside of us, but the biggest hurdle is the personality, the persona that is so programmed and conditioned into gratuities that lie outside. We're going to buy something, going to eat something, going to, it's all out there. But the journey that we do need to take, that I've taken, that you've taken, and all people who are out there creating consciously this new earth, have done the work and continue to do the work. This is not a quick fix thing. This is not something that you do for a week or a month and you feel so much better, and then all of a sudden your life changes. It's not about, oh, I meditate, and yeah, but that's fine, because while you're in that state of meditation, that's when you feel that it's suddenly you start to connect with something other than your persona. That is what that's about. And it feels great. Then you come out of it and you go back to living your life. Of course, that's what we all do. It is ultimately how you live that life, and can you keep the energy that you found, the connection that you found during your meditation, whilst you're out doing the shopping, whilst you're out having a barbecue, whilst you're out having coffee with your friends. Can you maintain that level of conscious vibration? So I remember when I first started and my life fell apart after 23 years of marriage and 3 children. None of it seemed to make sense to me anymore. And everything that I'd ever believed in suddenly just didn't seem to be real. And I made choices and decisions to walk away from all of that, which was heartbreaking, because in my philosophy before that, and my principles, marriage is forever. You just don't, no matter what it is, you stick with it. And to walk away from that was absolutely the most difficult thing that I've ever done in my life. But I wouldn't be sitting here with you had I not followed that inner calling, and it was a calling I just couldn't deny. It was crazy. So how do you then go within when the outside doesn't make sense? That is when we're driven to go look elsewhere, and that elsewhere is always within. And for me, it began with surrender, because I thought, well, I've messed my life up so much. I surrender to whatever is driving me to do this. And I don't know, I was introduced to the word purpose, and I'm going, Purpose? What is purpose? I don't know what my purpose is here on this planet. I don't know why I came. Show me the way. And that has been really my mantra ever since. Show me the way every day. Show me the way. Um, from a place that is other than my personality needs, my persona needs. And so the work began. And if you come to see me, I have a library of, I can't tell you how many books. I can't tell you how many seminars and workshops and how much money I spent on me and on this journey, because it became like a lifeline. It became a priority for me, because I knew that if I didn't follow that calling, no matter how difficult it was and how much I had to rearrange my life, I needed to just keep doing it. It isn't for the faint hearted. In my days, I was, pretty much on a lone ranger. Nowadays, everybody talks about it. So you have your supporter everywhere. So I really want to encourage people, particularly now. We are going through some very tumultuous times energetically. And even though you might think that things are easing, they might be easing in your little life, but there are places on this planet at the moment that are under incredible stress and strain and attack and suffering, because the interesting thing that I was told right at the beginning was that this is a spiritual war that's been going on, a galactic war for eons. And so there are these constant, tearing of energies that they're just giving me this analogy of a tug of war on the ropes. You know what you do, and you pull, and the other one goes a little bit, and this one pulls, and it isn't until that last minute when the last tug comes. And we are getting very close to that last tug, but we are the microcosm of the macrocosm. And so it is so vital that every individual being examines what they are in this time, who they are in this time, and override their persona needs. Because what I've learned is that it's back to front. When I do the work, and so 35 years later, I'm still doing it every day, I connect to that part of me that is the life force. And if you don't know what the life force is, or you haven't really got a connection to that, it's very simple. Breathe. Every in breath is life entering you. Every out breath is letting go of that which is no longer required. And when we become conscious of that it's not just, I'm up and I'm alive. Well, you're only alive because you just breathed in. And if you do not have conscious breathing and conscious awareness of what your level of vibration is like, then you are a robot and you are very easily pushed around. So when you talk about, when you're talking about this new earth reality and sovereignty is being completely in tune and completely alert within your heart and soul, not so much in your mind, because your mind has to come from that, not the other way around. So the inner work needs to become a priority. It has to become your number one commitment to really be able to experience, create, and expand this new earth and this new human that we are becoming. So now, 35 years later, here I sit, and I know how much it takes. And I'm always here for those who want to learn how, why, which way. But one thing that I do know is because of the sovereigns, I'm speaking about you, Sov, and me, and all the people, all the teachers out there that have done the hard work, that are making it a little bit easier for those who are following. But you've still got to do the work.
Yeah. Yeah, so true. Yeah, it's that inner hero's journey, and what I've noticed, and it is for most people that way, is because we're so conditioned and we're so cultured, and we live on so many unexamined assumptions and belief systems about reality, that even the world that we were born into seems to be, made up of shopping centers and straight roads with lots of traffic signs and lots of stoplights and lots of police with radar guns, and well, if you're born into that, then that is accepted as the norm. But that is not natural. That and then we can say, well, what do you do with that then? It's like, well, just see it for the full reality what it is, because there is a natural world in every square meter everywhere we go, where nature is present. And if you're standing accidentally in just a concrete box, you can just close your eyes and feel the breath of air and the breath of life that comes into you. So nature is all around us. It is what we have based our entire life's foundations on as a societal framework. And we get to explore here on the earth, what it's like to be human and what it's like to play with all of our humanness. But I wouldn't necessarily call it human, as I call it human damage, because we are not navigating in syntropy with life. We are actually hijacked as a human species by an entropic mind virus that has seeped into and is expressing itself in humanity through the misuse and the overuse of the intelligence. And yes, it's given us all the great sciences, but so much of both that his story and all of those scientific fields and boxes and boxes and boxes of segregated, looking into the separative ways in order to individualize something so we can explain it. What that has taken out of our human ecology is our interconnectedness, our interwovenness, our interrelatedness. And once that's stripped out of a culture, well, that's really great, because if you are in charge of the cult programming and the social engineering for profit gain or whatever power outcomes that you wish to pursue, well, you got a captive audience, because you've just kind of stripped the real interrelatedness over time out of the human ecology. And they still want to fill that gap. They still want to find that connection. And so they'll go get movies. They'll go and consume, so to speak. And why I'm saying all of this is because it is a real willful commitment to being willing to seeing life through the natural order, the original teachings of those masters, ascended masters, the Gnostics, the Cathars, the Essene communities, all of the groups and circles and peoples that I've studied directly under, or I've studied through, or I researched, or I had remembrance and activations of my own past lives as living that. All of that information was coming through for me, not so that I could identify with it, but so it could stir me awake. It could let me see through the illusion and through the matrix of distortion that is trying to promote and market to us all of these great ideas and concepts, but it's only speaking to this, or it's speaking to our fear-based gut, our reaction instincts. And it's festering, but it's also feasting and feeding of that. And the question really is, do we want to, once we become aware of it, do we want to keep participating in that? Because we can see from the past 30, 40, 50 years of consumerism and capitalism going, out of control, what that is leading to, and what inevitably will be a pathway that humanity is creating with that. If that's not necessarily a pathway you want to be on, not because you hate it, not because, no, just because it doesn't feel in resonance with your being, with your truth, with your spirit, with what you came here in your commission on the earth for. Look, if you say, no, that's what I'm totally came for. I came here to hang out on cruise ships and go to parties and listen to extremely loud music and be close up to speakers and whatever it is, it really doesn't matter. Follow your bliss. But if you're one of those people that's here like, no, there is more to this life. I am a spiritual being having a human experience, and the human part of my experience is showing up to be a little bit unfulfilling, Well, usually we get cracked open by the universe, and it can come in many forms and in many ways. But myself and you, Yvonne, you just shared it. We hit rock bottom. We totally burn out. And I have been on this cycle now so many times that for me, it's like I I perfected the art of dying, the identity that I did adopt, the archetype that I did choose to play out, and release those associations so that I can actually find what wants to be birthed through into my new succession and my new expression. And life just keeps successioning us. We ourselves, whether we want it or not, we are always growing, expanding, no matter how slow, no matter how incremental. There's always, even when we feel that we're totally going on the decline, that's just setting us up to actually wake up and move out of that valley of darkness yet again, to find that there is light, that there are people of like mind, that there is inspiration, that there is loving kindness and caring in this world, and that we have the power within to create a life worth living for. And this is what I speak to, and this is what I share around, this is what you share around, this is what part of our purpose is to be a way shower, to be a person that not only says, hey, this is possible, but I have gone through the journey, and I would love to share with you the wisdom on how you can ascend, how you can come out of whatever you still feel that you're stuck in. And that is inner work, that is looking at self, because we can't change the world out there by just adopting some new beliefs about the matrix or government, or no, that's called coping. And the only way to resolve any unresolved patterning, programming, trauma, whatever it is by resolving it. And the only way out of it is into it. And so that is available.
That it is available, and so um, it's also one of the things that fascinated me throughout this journey. As I was coming out of it, and then people came to me and asked me to start teaching whatever I was doing. They wanted something, so that's how I began this journey of becoming, an inspiring being to guide and support
Yeah.
and share as I grew. And,
Mhm.
I have people that still work with me that have been with me for 20 years. And yes, you can say, well, gosh, you're not much good, obviously. But the reason they stay is because they watch me grow.
Yeah.
They watch me expand. And so it is my continuous growth that inspires them to keep doing the work. And one of the
Mm.
things that we talked about was the inner sanctuary. And so I just want to really go there because I just went to do a little bit of shopping this morning, and in the shopping centre that usually is okay. But for some reason, the energy was really not okay for me. And I rushed through what I had to do and hopped in the car and came home. And the minute that I reached my front door, it was like, oh, I am in my sanctuary, because my home is my sanctuary. But when we talk about the inner sanctuary, and that is because my home is the reflection and expression and the energetic radiation of me. And so once I walk in there, it's like, whoo, it's that release. And so, what is our inner sanctuary? Well, when I first started on this journey, I, of course, did what everybody did, and I meditated for, as long as I could, as often as I could. I pursued every teacher I could find that resonated with me. But the one thing that I kept coming home to was find your essence. Find your essence. And at first, essence, well, we grow up thinking that's some sort of an aromatic uh, product. And so my essence, what is my essence? And so when you do the inner work and you start to look, your essence that is the key, that is that vibrational frequency that I talk about so often, and that Sov and I talk about, that individuated spark of creation that has a unique refined frequency that is only yours. So when we talk about being unique, that is why you're unique. You're not unique because of your creed, your color, your personality, your voice, how you can, whether you can sing or you do. No, that's not your uniqueness. Our uniqueness is that amazing spark of creation that only has one tone, and it's yours. But if we never stop long enough and are still long enough to hear or feel that tone. So I was told a long time ago, and I do want to just share this with you, a bit of it, we talk about tone, that if you stand with your forehead against the wall and hum, and you hum until the hum is a direct connection with source. You'll feel it. There is this, whoa, yes, that's mine. And that is your actual sound tone. We all have these tones. We have tones in color. We have tones in sound, as you talked about the music. And when we're young, we have a different tone because we're still learning and growing, and so we can cope with sounds that are probably more erratic. Then as we get older, we become calmer and we become more connected to our tone. So this inner sanctuary is something that we need to find within ourselves. So when I went on my journey to my inner sanctuary, I had to die to a lot because I had really created an outer facade of somebody who was fairly officious, very super efficient, but slightly officious in that expression. So power over, people had fear of me. And I have to say that there are still people who sometimes have fear of me, and not for the same reason. I think it is because now I radiate such an powerful energy from within, as where before I radiated a power over. And there's a huge difference. So when I went within, I found that that was not my essence at all. My essence was of the purest of pure love. A love that was not able to be expressed in any physical way. It was like nature itself. It was like the birth of me. And so we all have a different kind of essence. Not everybody has that particular essence. There are, and for many of my students that come, I read their essence very quickly, and many have an essence of joy. They just need to exude laughter and joy and pleasure, and as where I feel that I'm more content when I'm a little bit more peaceful, and I can just sit and do nothing other than radiate, and that is enough for me. There are people who have essences of very different expressions. So that is the inner sanctuary. Once you find that core within you that has nothing to do with your persona, but then the work begins. And you know what the work is? It is when the persona can die to and surrender to being an expression consciously of that essence. That is when you find your way home.
Yvonne, I just love the work that you and I are able to share, and that we have this ability to put into words what that experientially feels like, what that looks like. And what I love about how you and I relate, and how we relate things back into nature, is this entropic orientation, this field that I am a big stand for, which I seem to be gifted as my bundle to bring out into the world. And what I love in it is that a lot of people have done the meditation. I had a exceptionally rich spiritual life as a spiritual window shopper for 15 years. And it wasn't until I was actually taken to the true essence of my inner sanctuary in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And it wasn't because I was guided or I was sitting in a ceremony. No, I was sitting in a marae, in one of those longhouses, and I was looking at the 80 odd other people from Japan and Australia and America that were all just packing their bags and rummaging around. And all of a sudden, the message of one of the elders from the night before spoke to me, but it didn't speak in my ears. It came from behind and through within me. And all of a sudden, I got it. But it wasn't a I got it. It was a, and for the first time in my life, whatever I had fantasized about living from the heart and being in that field of consciousness, all of a sudden, I was experientially and viscerally feeling the consciousness field of vibratory frequency alive in my awareness, in my being. And it was such a profound experience that lacks so much wording, but I I was in the Garden of Eden. I was in the Garden of Eden of consciousness that was the new earth, that was the original and natural way of relating to life, reality, universe, and everything around. And of course, that's only where the journey begins. Because once that flash moment happened for me, it wasn't for me about, oh, now I need to figure out a way to access that again and access that again. Because a lot of people, I hear them saying that, it's like, oh, I had this like total psychedelic experience. And now I spent the last 30 years trying to get there again. Well, there is no there. There is only undoing. We sometimes are gifted these glimpses of what is the truth of our essence and our nature and the nature of consciousness. And then the art is to let go more and die more and relinquish more and resolve more, so that when we get more out of the way that is in the way of that light, of that love, of that pure distinct feeling, the more bright and the more rich and the more distinct and the more articulate it becomes. And then we can become a messenger for that truth, that we are not here as, aimless workers, just all having to get a job and pay taxes and climb up a ladder to figure out that the ladder was on the wrong side of the wall or whatever it is, or try to build a business in order to. That may be part of our programming and experience. But what I love about what you and I keep bringing, all of this matrix relating, other relating, government relating, whatever the out there party may be, we bring it back to nature. And we approach it through that natural orientation. And we use nature as the contrast. And as we use nature as the contrast, we look at what is then human nature, and that we are sovereign. But we're not sovereign because we have some intellectual property that says, well, I have a piece of paper and I'm my own person. No, sovereignty is a sense of self-beingness that is free. It's simply free of the fear of what others may think. There's a freedom in sovereignty that is literally an absence of being preoccupied with others. And what that is experienced as just very little preoccupation in the thoughts. There's very little activity going on that is about this story and that story and this person and what will they think and da, da, da. And so for as long as those thoughts are still really prevalent in our world and we're getting bombarded with all this information, there is still more to undo, and there's still more to uncover, and there's still more to die again, another hero's journey, death into, to come back out yet again with another layer pulled off. But what I love about our sharing is that there is a pathway, and that pathway isn't necessarily new, but it's a pathway with nature, based on nature's principles, based on the understanding of how life works in nature. And that is not something that we can learn in a book. Nobody can go to a school for. The only school that exists for that is within, with people that have the ability to shine light on that and speak to that, so that the innate and the intrinsic cellular remembering and awareness can go, I get that too. Not because of this, but because it is part of our natural human ecological makeup, to base our ways of relating to life on those natural comprehensions. Why? Because they're natural. And this is so much, such an inspiring part of me having the privilege and the honor to sit with you again and again, because the more that we get to speak to this, the more that we get to reverberate out that there is not just another path, but it is an active life path that anybody can step into with the given that they are willing and that they are curious, and then they're willing. And I love just how we get to unpack so many of these parts. And just very briefly, to bring it back to that inner sanctuary, is that when I had my experience, what I worked on for 5.5, 6 years straight is just showing up with my will and my willfulness, with everything that I was given and shown and taught through the indigenous life ways and through the syntropic understanding of nature. I was just dissolving yet another belief system that wasn't actually real, and another program and another story. And it meant that, yeah, I did leave my job, and I did leave my family, and it wasn't me who wanted to divorce, but I became an impossible person because I became so committed, unknown to myself, not to get there again, but to get here. That was the aim. And I realized that there was stuff in the way there that I didn't see, and I was willing to bring awareness to it, willing to bring awareness to it. And syntropy has been my true north in that ability to also uncover that beautiful natural sovereignty that is one of peace, that is one of grace, that is one of distinction, is one of clarity, and it's one of love. And so that inner sanctuary is there for everyone, and it's unique to everyone. But one of the things that I feel, and I can't speak on behalf of anyone else's inner sanctuary, it's a place of grace, it's a place of harmony, and it's a place of renewed activation. That something new, once we really connect in that, something new begins to burgeon into our lives, and we become an emanation of that, and we cannot stop talking about it, we cannot stop making the changes come about that only we can in our lifetime bring about. So grateful.
There's so many things that you've just said that spark me, and I go, well, yes, nature. I find that the more that we go within, we find our human nature. And let's have a look at human nature. And I really want to bring to people's attention how much of that nature do you consciously express every day. So let's look at human nature. Human nature is kindness. It is sharing. It is caring. It is belonging. It is building together. Very few people who thrive when they're on their own. It is accepting, and it is pure love for life within each other. When we are not conditioned, not programmed, and you see it in little children, we're filled with joy. Joy of what? Joy because we have been given a present? No, that comes later. In the beginning, it is just joy of life. And there is nothing more endearing and more heart thrilling than a little baby when it first starts to giggle. That is pure joy rippling up out of this human vessel. For what? Because of a tickle, because of whatever, it doesn't matter. It just likes to giggle. And so that is human nature. We need to go right back, and we need to reconnect with that part of us that first incarnated into the flesh. And remember the joy of play, the joy of what I absolutely, the awe of learning, the awe of newness, as you talk about, Sovereign, this continuous expansion of consciousness, that there is more, there's always more. But we get stuck into being taught what other people think we should learn. And so we have schools full of bored people, me, because you because they were never teaching me what I wanted to know. And it wasn't until I left school that the world opened up to me, and I just became an insatiable um, input person to this day. And yes, I will be turning 83 this year, and I say that with great pride. But there is not a day that I breathe life into this physicality that I am not looking for something to expand me. Because that is what life's all about. Nature is about that. Nature wants to expand. Here in Melbourne, Australia, uh, I was told that on Mother's Day is when you put bulbs into the ground. Well, I've never grown bulbs, which is probably pretty silly that Sophia and I both come from countries where, bulbs are the thing. So I decided this year I'd have a go. And so the day after Mother's Day, I planted my bulbs. And I'm looking at these pots and going, well, I cannot wait for you to expand, because that is what life is. It's constantly growing. Life, when it's not growing, it is on its way to dying. And that is not what we in the new earth are about. We want humans to grow. And I know Sovereign and I share this thing about, yes, we talk about it because it feels so good, and we want everyone to feel like this. Why I'm so passionate and why I keep doing this every day is because I want everyone to feel what I feel. And I want everyone to have this experience of being able to separate myself from what's going on out there and come home to this place where love lives, where joy lives, where knowingness lives, that we are so much more than we ever could imagine. And there is no end game. There is no destined place. There is no, oh, I've got it now. Because the minute that you say that, wham, no, you have not. And you start again. And as Sovereign knows, and those of us who are on this journey, we laugh at it because we know that this is something that we've been born to. And we are having these discussions every week to inspire even just one person to decide to be willing to devote themselves to this building, this inner sanctuary, and treasuring it and allowing it to thrive, so that once you move out there into the communities, you become a way shower of an energy that is infectious and there absolutely is no medicine for, because there's no medicine needed other than love, other than I will say, walk naked. And so when Sovereign and I talk about this journey that we're on constantly, it is peeling off more stuff that has been put upon us through this period of time on this planet by those who do not see us as part of nature, but they see us as a commodity. And I am no one's commodity. I'm far too stubborn for that. So for me, it is all about the sovereignty. When we use that word, to me, that is about kingdom. It's about, being in charge of. And as I'm totally a-religious and not biblical, but I know there is a phrase that says the kingdom of heaven lives within. And I wrote about it yesterday that, in any given moment, if you bring all your attention to this now and you tune into the heart center of you and you see your breath as the life entering this beautiful physicality, and you bring all of your awareness to that moment, that is heaven right there. It's not out there, it's in here. And when you bring the inner out there, that's how we create the new earth. And the earth is returning to its Garden of Eden. It's had enough of our rubbish. It's kicking us off unless we get it and we become part of its natural process. I have to laugh about this weather thing. People keep saying, oh, the weather, the weather. Well, the Earth is moving into a new trajectory in the galaxy. And yes, weather is going to change. So, be like us Melburnians. Have a whole wardrobe of clothes in your boot. So it doesn't really matter what the weather is. You just get in there and change it. Please, I cannot stress enough, find your teacher, find your way to, because Sovereign and I, we still do that. We're still looking for expansion, and it may be just sitting out in a field and watching the trees grow. That's a teacher. It's probably the biggest teacher you can find when we return to allow ourselves to grow like that. So yes, Entropy is amazing. Human ecology is amazing. And the sanctuaries that we're building, we can only build because we nurture our own sanctuaries every day. Every day.
The trifecta, or the triune of the wisdom teachings that are both indigenous, they're ancient, the Essenes, the Cathars, the Gnostics, those following the Sophianic path that spurred up through the Dark Ages and of course got extinguished quite radically because it was undermining, because in its superiority, not because it was trying to be that, but because of the inferiority of the patriarchal model, anything to do with that deeper feminine understanding of the wholeness of this human experiment and how we sit within that as a human species. There is a beautiful triune that, of course, got co-opted in religious forms in one way or the other. And it doesn't really matter whether we call it the Son, the Father, and the Holy Spirit, because, they had to come up with something. It's all great spirit. It's all great creator. It's all total, the wholeness of all consciousness, which is, indeed beyond our comprehension. But when we do break that down and how does that play out in human terms, then there's syntropy, and that's the study of nature. Then there's self-love, which is a quintessential component of ever restoring our self-sovereignty. But we cannot just love ourselves back into wholeness. We have to have willingness, which is held in that sovereignty department, so to speak, that aspect of our whole being is this. We have to cultivate that will, because if we're not willing, nothing's going to happen. We're not giving instructions to ourselves and we're not giving permission to our spirit to say, all right, give it to me because I am willing to receive. Wait and see what starts happening when you start cultivating your will and become willing to receive, become willing to come into awareness, become willing to access the memory you think that you don't. The story is, I don't have any memories. Do you feel willing to become willing to access the memories? Because a lot of people just say like, well, okay, some resistance. Do you feel willing to become willing? Yeah, I feel willing to become willing. Okay, now that you are willing to become willing, because this is vulnerable work. We're accessing a part of our unconscious mind that is behind a veil ever since whatever happened. And so to just barge in there and uncover it, we need love from that other side of the triangle. It needs to be a work of love. the study of nature, the study of human nature, and then love as the frequency through which we keep bouncing inside of that pyramid or that triangle, which is very much different from the trauma triangle, where I've been trapped for a very long time, purposefully so I could discover what still wanted to be resolved and dissolved and so forth. But I also notice now that I am so freed out of that because of applying the teachings and applying the wisdom that I was shown through the lens of the indigenous eyes, and that heart-based field way of relating to human ecology. Because I've done that, I have now also come to sit in that sense of there is a faster way. And so, what both Yvonne, and this is what I feel most people out there sharing something, but Yvonne, I have to reiterate, I currently don't know anybody that talks about syntropy and human ecology and self sovereignty from a place of loving, caring, kindness in relationship to our human family and the larger picture, to the extent where it becomes tangible tools and stepping stones to take in our own individuated journey. And that is what I'm laying out, and that's what you're guiding people through. But what I sense for myself, and having recognized the absence of using nature as the contrast to rediscover what it should have been like, in order to discover, oh, well, if that's what it should have been like, it should be like that. So I want to start doing it like, how do I get out of doing it in this unnatural way? Because I recognize there is a choice to do it in a natural way. And what is required is that willingness. And I sense that you and I both kind of have back engineered ourselves. We brought ourselves back step by step by step by step. But it doesn't have to take 10, 20, 30 years in order to do all the research and read all the books. This is the beauty of our human ecologies, that we can lean into the wisdom and the experience that somebody else has navigated, that doesn't require to read thick Bibles and come on so many different courses and retreats, so that you slowly but surely get enrolled in a new way of understanding. No, all of this knowledge is inside of each and all of us. This natural way of relating to life that Yvonne and I share around, all of that lives within. That is not a new philosophy. It's not a new ideology. It's not some new ideation of what we discovered and has never been talked about. I feel that what I've been shown has been lived for longer than humanity has currently been in the field of distortion. All the thousands of years that humanity lived in harmony, that societies were raising their younglings in love and respect and awareness of their sovereignty, literally following them and cultivating their gifts and bringing those gifts out, and figuring out how to really syntropically stimulate them to become the leaders and the expressions of star patterns that they came to embody here on earth. And I have learned that through the process of me back engineering myself over all of these years, that there is a much quicker and more efficient way to really do it. And that, I feel, is the gift, and also the responsibility that naturally then comes with those that have arrived at something, to then start giving that back and start giving that back. And that is what I am so grateful for, to be able to do with you, Yvonne. As you said, whether there's one person that listens to this and gets only one thing out of it, I am so clear in myself that this is all part of that human journey, and that is a journey that we ultimately walk together. And this new earth of ours with our mother that we get to bring into being is a process. And it is an honor and a privilege to keep showing up for that, to keep sharing and to keep expressing how we can recultivate that inner Eden, that inner sanctuary, return there, come home there, because a whole new world of possibilities opens up.
Yes, it does. And as I said before, the thing about that is that when you feel that within you and you learn to live that, then you just want everyone to have that same feeling. And yes, of course, we are doing what we're doing because we don't want anyone else to have to do it the hard way anymore, because that we've run out of time for that. We've run out of time for that. It is really important to recognize the bigger picture, and that is that this earth is on its own journey of ascension or return. It is returning to its own original state of nature. And so we are constantly bombarded with energies that are bringing us to a state of either looking within or, being lost. And what I'm loving at the moment is that so many millions and billions of people are starting to say, whoa, it isn't that out there is not fulfilling me. It's not filling me full. There is something else that I need to look for. And of course, the fulfillment we look for is within us, when we fill us, when we do it, not when something outside needs to do it. And so this dedication to the self and to the nurturing of the self. And I just want to bring it back to my bulbs, because I'm a bit nervous about those bulbs, not having done it before, and it's a bit like being, a first mother. I remember with my firstborn son, you look at that, and even though at the time I was a qualified nurse and had been working in children's hospitals and taking care of other people's babies, when it is your own, there's always something else. So, and then watching that, and I had an innate knowing that I needed to give this little being as much experience as I could. And I needed to watch this little being to see what was his innate gift or interest that was coming out. And I always remember that at the time, being fairly ancient, we had a television that you need to go and turn the knob, and from as little as I can remember, he would turn the knob to nature programs. And so when the nature program finished, he would just turn the knob and he would want another nature program. So then when he was a little bit older and we went out, I took him out all the time into the bush or into a park, he would go and he would hold the leaf and just look at the leaf. Or I remember once when he was now 18 and heading off, finishing his high school and heading off overseas. We went for a bushwalk, and I came around the corner and nearly tripped over him because he was lying on the ground with his face on the earth, and I'm going, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Shh." And so I looked, and there was this tiny little caterpillar, and it had the most amazing colors. And he said, "Oh, Mum, look at that. Isn't that beautiful?" So now he was a multifaceted, very intelligent, wonderful being. And so all his teachers kept saying, "Oh, of course he's going to do science," because he was, great at science. "Oh, he's going to do art. He was great at art. Oh, he's going to have to go and do." So he was so confused. I sent him overseas and said, "Go and explore life, darling, and then come back." But I always knew that it was nature that was calling him. And of course, he ended up being a very, very astute park ranger. He's been living in the bush and teaching people about how to take care of that. But it was only because ultimately that was where he went after years of sitting and going, well, do I need to become a graphic designer, or do I need to become something else? And I knew that wasn't it. It was nature that called. So we all have that. Every child has that. Every youngling, as you call it, has their interest. And I think I've shared before. I remember when I was 7 years old and lying in my bed and pretending to speak English, and and I was such an insular child. I was terrified of the world because I just, all I knew was war. And I was lying in my bed, and in my imagination, I was speaking to groups of people in English. I'd never heard English, didn't even know what it was, but I think I must have sounded wonderful. Anyway, I was really conversing. And so when you look at that later, and I arrive in an English speaking country and knowing nothing but yes and no and count to 10 when I was 14, and yet within 6 months I spoke this language pretty fluently because it was always in there. My destiny was to be in this English speaking country to speak to lots of people. And so when you allow that innate to come out of the younglings, and this is what is so wonderful about the fact that we are bringing children out of the system and we are allowing them to explore themselves. That's what nature does. I put the bulb in the ground, and then I expect that, well, I have no expectations but wishes, that this bulb is eventually going to grow some roots and it's going to explore itself into the earth, and then it's going to come out and explore life out above the earth. And I'm going to be the wonderful mama that can then enjoy it and see the growth of a baby that I have produced in a bulb. But that is what all nature is about. And so, yes, I work mostly with adults because there's so much peeling to be done. And I just love it. I love when we start to take the layers off, and when the person has the courage. It takes courage to let go of all of these layers. It takes courage to be willing to say, I really want to know what's in here. Personally, I don't want to end this life with anything left unexplored. That is why I still get up every day and I search and I go, what more is there? How much more? And so it's this level of consciousness. So when a youngling comes up, they have a level of consciousness of learning to walk. And then we have to build and we have to learn things and we have to learn to do more things. And that's a level of consciousness that takes us to the next step. And that is how life progresses. There are different levels of consciousness. So when people talk about this 3D and this 5D, it's very confusing. But they're just like going from second grade to fifth grade or third grade to fifth grade. And you need to learn. You need to do work to get there. It's not just going to happen overnight. Nobody's going to say to you, well, you're such a lovely looking person. You can go up 3 grades now. No, you need to do some work. And so that is what today is all about. I'm encouraging you to give yourself the gift of willingness to expose, explore, and express your inner truth. And that is when you will find yourself in a new earth community, in a new earth world, within and without.
So wonderful, Yvonne. Thank you so much for another hour of power and beauty and love and insight and sharing of the heart of what our cells all resonate with, what our cells have a bioresonance with. And yeah, if anybody would like to stay updated with what's happening, the link's in the description. Get on the newsletter with Earth Heroes TV to be notified of upcoming and conversations that you may not. We're all just here watching it right now. And so great for all of you who are with us and are taking this in. Please share it out to whoever, in whatever group you are. If you felt that there was something that resonated, just tag a friend. The conversations that we cover are indeed really touching the heart of our humanity. and how to find not just the roadmap, but how to start walking that together, hands in hand. And if you want to hear more, watch more, and you're either watching this on YouTube or here on the Facebook, in the description also has the link for the Earth Heroes TV channel for Ascension Wisdom TV with Yvonne, where I come on, where Shay comes on, and where we keep refining this conversation and we keep delving and speaking to and articulating. And what it does for me, it is just bringing me clearer and more concisely onto the path of direction, so that I can be a clear way shower for others to step into their brave new life, to activate themselves. And there's a lot more news that in a very short time around that brave new life activation is going to come out. I'm not going to spill the beans here, but everybody who pre-registered for this amazing activation course received their emails. If you do want to hear about it, you can email me directly. You'll have to do that very shortly, because I'm not going to be on emails all day sitting around. But there is so much more that's being shared, and this conversation being so valuable, Yvonne, is one of those pieces of the journey, one of those stepping stones around this cultivating the willingness. It is so beautiful, so beautiful. And I thank you so much for being on this path with you, the honor and the privilege I get to absorb and relate to the wisdom that you are bringing through, and that I get to stand in my own and with my own next to you. It's so beautiful.
Thank you, and it is an equal privilege for me as well. And look, if anyone wants to do any work with me, and I know that it's always time changes, but they can contact me through my Facebook page or send me an email, because I do Zoom individual sessions still. So if I can be of any assistance for people to find their truth, their inner self, then I'm available. I am willing for that.
Beautiful. So beautiful.
And thank you, as always, Sovereign.
Yes. I'm just going to put your email address in here as well. We're stepping it up a little bit. If your cells feel it, just reach out. That's the best way to do it, just to take action on inspiration when it arises, when you feel it, when you sense it. And we're going to close this hour out. Thank you again, Yvonne. And we'll see you again all in next week's conversation. That is just going to be another dive and exploration of all
Another step. It's a beautiful path.
So great. Thank you, Yvonne.
Bye bye.